Welcome, Senator. It's great to see you.
Great to see you, Mark. Thank you for having me.
How could I have a Leaders Who Care video series without having Senator Tony Loffreda on and in the series? I mean, really.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here, and always great to see you and chat.
No, it's always my pleasure, whether it's business, economics, pandemics, but mostly hockey that I really enjoy. So
well, our Habs did okay, just okay though. We're used to Stanley Cups here, but it's been too long. Drive for 25. The last one was in 1993. So when you need a calculator to calculate how long ago that was, it's been a long time. But this year at least we had a few good series and we had a few good prospects. So I'm sure you miss Montreal, and hopefully the best is yet to come for our young Habs.
Yep, Mr. Suzuki, looks like that turns out to be a good trade, even though Pat Chiaretti was a favorite of mine. And we got a lot of good young players, and we just picked up a great backup goalie too.
Yes, exactly. We'd keep Carey Price, the best goaltender in the world, keep him rested and ready to go when we need him most.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to cancel the rest of the questions, and we should do an analysis of the playoffs.
Well, that's okay with me. Well, sports is life, and it plays such a big part of our lives, our daily lives, and we all miss it, right? So we all miss the live sports.
Absolutely, miss the live sports, and we were talking this before this. I miss you hear pro players talk about this all the time. What's the thing they miss the most out of everything? And they might remember obviously winning the Stanley Cup or whatnot, but they miss the camaraderie, the relationships between their teammates and what that means and what it taught them and everything. So sports is life, there's no doubt. Let's start, if we would, because if you would be kind of to just introduce yourself formally and tell us a little bit about you, and then let's chat.
Well, I always say, and I've said it so often, it's never about us, it's about everybody else. And having been part of a big corporation for so long as an executive and as a senior executive, I've always said it's not about us, it's about everybody else. But you asked the question in two sentences. I mean, I'm a Canadian senator, independent senator, since July 2019. And we've lived so much since then. I saw a joke the other day that 2020, it's already September, and March 15th, only 16 months ago seems like yesterday. And some people got it, some people didn't get it. Oh, 16 months ago, Tony, you never drink, but it's not 16 months ago. It seems so long ago. And I said to my wife, do I have to explain that joke to many people? It's been so long ago. So I'm a Canadian senator, independent, nonpartisan, part of the new Canadian Senate reform. We're looking at efficient, nonpartisan. And I can go on and on about the Senate. I truly believe in a strong Canadian Senate. We've got a great parliamentary system in Canada, one of the best in the world. And it is for us to strengthen and to keep it going and to make it stronger, like they say, and keep learning every single day, which I do. I'm a former executive and vice chairman of RBC, which is Canada's largest bank. And I think that's enough about me. I mean, I think it's about everybody else and never about ourselves. But just to give you a little in as to what I do, and I think those 2 or 3 sentences are more than enough at this point.
Well, people talk a lot about what their why is now, etc. So I just want to tell a tiny bit more about you, because it is important to set the stage. Why do you do what you do?
Well, I remember, and I like storytelling because it puts us in context, in true context of real life situations. If I go back in my career, just to give you an example, I go back in my career at one point, and titles don't matter, they don't mean much, but at the time I was managing director of North American corporate banking, and there was a branch, there was an area in Montreal, the western side of Montreal, way back in my career in the late 90s. I started in 1984, but in the late 90s, by then, I was ready to take up a leadership role. And we took up a leadership role in one of Montreal's districts, the west side of Montreal, so center west of Montreal, which was a large enough area. And it's about passion, one word, passion. the large turnover. Those were the years where the young started to say, hey, if you're at a job for too long, there's something wrong, and we've got to try different experiences. And we had very little turnover. When we had an opening, we had many people apply, which we had never seen that in that area. And at one point, personnel, head of HR comes over and says, what are you doing differently? I mean, we've never seen this in this district, in this area. We've had a hard time here for many different reasons, a very competitive area where all the large businesses were. I said one sentence in French was, c'est la passion qui fait la différence. It's the passion that makes the difference. And in French, they made it the slogan of the bank. C'est la passion qui fait la différence. And I think it's about passion. It's about being passionate about people. It's about having a set of values. You have to wake up, and you said it well, you have to wake up with a purpose, a why. No matter what cycle in life you're at or you're in, you have to wake up with a purpose. And you have to have passion for people. So I think that's, if I have to say it in one word, it's passion for people. And it gives me a sense of satisfaction when I help someone, may it be well, now as a senator, we don't have the employees we used to have, obviously, but if, service, values, we look at the values. And maybe I'll come back to my set of values later on, but for that question, why do we do what we do? Values, passion, and which is so important.
Passion, c'est la différence. I got that. That's
C'est la passion qui fait la différence.
Love it. I love it. Well, you know that it's funny. It's taken almost decades for corporate leaders to realize that aligning with the passion for some kind of social impact actually is a good thing to do. Obviously not everybody, but in general, it's taken a while. And then they started to realize that it's actually good for business. It's definitely good for attracting and keeping the best talent. Now, you've been engaged with making a difference economically and socially in the corporate world, as you say, and now in the government sector. I guess you would say then, to be a little redundant, that passion is the difference you offer. But what changes have you seen of business leaders recognizing that as well?
Well, there too, I think, passion is a key word. We mentioned that. Care is important. There's a nice quote, and many have coined it or have said that it's their own in many different ways and forms. But nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And that's been quoted by many people, many different people. And so I love that quote, and I'll share it today. But I think it's a set of values. I think in a corporation, I remember way back when I got to RBC as an executive, and we said, what are we going to put on our reception floor when the people walk in? What should we put? A nice frame of Montreal and overseeing the city, and everybody has that. I said, let's put our values as a frame. And I said, well, we can't do that. We only have, let's put them on a cardboard, and put cardboard just when employees walk in here, when our clients walk in here, the first thing I want them to see is this set of our values. And those became my personal values, and we helped establish those values. We lived those values. And what are they? Integrity, never negotiable. Never negotiable integrity. You can go wrong on many, I think Warren Buffett has said it so many times, and many people share his view. You can go wrong anywhere, many different areas, but never wrong on integrity, right? And as a banker, all we had was trust, which is the currency of every relationship. And in order to have trust, you have to have integrity. So diversity was a key value. Why is it a key value for corporations? I mean, and it should be an everyday key value. It's an everyday key value because we learn from each other. And we are in a pandemic, which protectionist economy, more and more nationalism, and let's protect our own economy. But we've all learned in this pandemic that we're all connected. Yep. And in order for corporations to be global, you have to have diverse people serving you, diverse people getting those ideas out across into the world, into the business world. So diversity is so important in the business world and should be so important in our everyday lives. Service, that's one of my key values. Be of service to people. responsibility, teamwork, which we now call collaboration. Let's call it collaboration, right? So if you put those 5, 6 values together, that's what leaders have to bring across. Integrity, service, responsibility, teamwork and collaboration, and diversity being also a key value in that. So if you take those 5 and accountability, if you want to make it 6, I always say focus on 5 or 6, and if you focus on 10 or 12, you lose concentration, you lose focus, and details make the difference. Passion makes the difference, and details are so important. So I think values are so important in today's leaders, and bringing all that across and caring.
And I think you said it right, where it's one thing to put the sign in the reception area. Enron had a sign too, but they didn't do what you said. You lived it as well. And I think that's a big difference that's maybe happening right now. And I think part of it is because there are, which we trademark, leaders who care. And I think there was always also leaders who wanted to care and didn't know how. And then there's leaders, I hate to say it, some of them who didn't really care, but realized, man, maybe I should care because it's better for business also. So that's I think is part of it too. We talked before about quotes, and I talked about my mom always used to say, if you tell the best thing to do is tell the truth to everybody, or you always tell the truth to everybody, so that way you don't have to remember what you told everybody. But my grandparents always used to say, and I'm sure you've had this too, that is, and they said it with the Kiev accent, as long as you have your health, that's the most important thing, they would say. And then education. So my question based on that is, we've had, you mentioned the pandemic, more time to think, more time to be at home and see what our values, maybe reacquaint with our values. You got the pandemic going on. You got technology still zooming along. You got racial injustice. It was eventually had to happen. Mother Nature said, let's do it all at the same time, and do that. So do you see an awakening in general that people are looking at their values more now, and they're realizing that we can build a business properly and it is good for our community as well?
I see it. I definitely see it. And I think what's important, I read it on, I'm a junkie on education and reading. I love it. My house is full of books. And at one point, my son says, Dad, you can't possibly read all those books. So it's so important. I think education is key. What's important also is emotional intelligence. If I'd have to, and at one point, going back to the reading, on the Harvard Business Review, I saw a headline, Authentic Leadership. This was 10 years ago, and Authentic Leadership was the headline everywhere. And the first question I asked myself is, why would any leader not be authentic? We all have to be authentic. So yes, education is key. Emotional intelligence, I'll get back to that, is extremely important. And we have to do it in an authentic fashion, not just because it's good for our business. I said it from the beginning. You have to live your values. You have to be authentic, genuine, and it's key. And when I used to hire employees, I always used to, the IQ was important, but you hire for attitude and you develop aptitude. So you can develop skills, but if there's not the right attitude, the right culture fit, the right emotional intelligence, it's so difficult. So emotional intelligence is key. And why do I say it's so key in this era we're living? We have to know what the other person is feeling, how difficult it has been for them. So bring in the education, bring in the emotional intelligence, feel what they're feeling, and it's difficult to do if you don't have the education, including education of history. Let's teach our young history. What has gone on? Why are we living this movement? Where have we gone wrong? And how can we correct that going forward? So coming back to values, coming back to education, so important, emotional intelligence being key. And you said it from the beginning, leaders who care. And they have to care because they want to care. Not only because it's good for business, because they have to want to care. You have to live it. I said from the beginning, I say it again. You have to live your values. Live your values. And sorry, I used to coach, I go back to the volunteering. I used to coach youth soccer. And at one point, my wife says, did you hear yourself? You told the left defenseman to stay in his lane all the time. You told him 3 times. I said, but did you see the goal they scored on us? He wasn't in his lane. I should have told him 4 times, right? So.
Well, you said before that when we were talking, sports is life, and I totally believe that, because I learned a lot from sports coaches, good and bad. And the one thing a player will do anything for the coach that cares about them, right?
Yes.
Whether it's arguing with the ref about a call that won't be changed, but the player sees he's standing up for him. Whether he's telling him, you did this wrong, that will be here, now get back in there, we need you. That's a real leader who cares. That's right.
And so important, right? And in a corporation, same thing. If you have a leader, in today's day and age, we've changed. We've come from an era where, after the Second World War, it was authoritarian and leaders had to be strong, and they couldn't be weak, and they couldn't show empathy, because if you did show too much empathy, you were seen as a weak leader. It's not a weak leader. Leaders care. You have to show empathy. You have to care about your employees. You have to want them to grow. As I said from the beginning too, it's not about us. It's about everybody else. And may it be in government, may it be in executive leadership, and may it be in corporations. So important. Like sports, it's about teamwork, collaboration. One of the values I mentioned, collaboration.
I love collaboration, but I always laugh when I hear somebody saying, yeah, okay, this is great. We should all collaborate, all lead, but we should all collaborate. And it's one of those, I'll lead because my idea is the best, but we all should collaborate.
Well, I think leadership is I viewed myself always as a first among equals. If you're a leader, if you have the title, my previous role as a vice chairman, or I was an executive VP in commercial banking at one point, leading the commercial banking teams. I spent a lifetime in commercial banking and lending, but you're first among equals. You're there to help, you're there to facilitate, you're there to guide, you're there to impact, influence, and you shouldn't take yourself too seriously. I remember one of my VPs at one point said, "Oh, I have so many years experience. How come I didn't come up with that idea?" I said, "Well, I've seen today 5 or 6 or 7 deals, and you've probably seen one the last week that you've been working on. So if I don't come up with the ideas, something's wrong with me, right?" So you can't take yourself too seriously, and sometimes we're privileged to have certain roles and play certain leadership roles that we do play, and it gives us such an advantage because we see some of the wealth of the diversity, maybe of the people we deal with, the executives we see, the deals we've seen, and I'm talking about banking, or so it's so important.
Yeah, which kind of leads me to one more question. Well-being is a big topic, obviously, these days too. That people care about their well-being, and there's 3 parts. There's your financial well-being, there's physical and mental well-being. What role do you see business leaders playing, and government leaders too, obviously, playing in ensuring that people do have the opportunity for the 3 well-beings? There's no stigma with mental health being. There's no holding down, some people for their financial well-being. What role do you see we all have in that?
Well, it comes down to values. The leaders have to, first of all, the leader should establish values for his company, his business, his corporation. It comes down to values. It comes down to what we believe in, what you believe in, what we're living today. And there's a great player, going back to sports, but I don't want to dwell on that too long. But there's a great player linked to sports. Jackie Robinson started his career in Montreal. What are we living today, right? We all know what we're living with: systemic racism and the fight against it, and how do we change going forward. And Jackie Robinson had a nice quote, a nice saying: "The true meaning of a life is only the impact it has on other lives." And I think we have to live that. What impact do you have on other lives? A leader has to have empathy. He has to feel for his employees. He has to live the role, be a leader, live the values. And I remember before every morning, I used to tell my VPs, I said, what do you do first thing you get into the morning? Well, as a banker, I do my overdraft lists and I look at which manager has more. I go see him. No. I said, the first thing you should do with the young executives, I used to tell them, first thing you should do the tour. Go see each and every employee. Ask, how are you today? How you been? Invest 1 hour, an hour and a half. And I said, how are you going to do it? Oh, yeah, well, I'll stand up, I'll do it, I'll go door by door, I'll stand up, I'll knock, and how you doing? I said, no. I said, even if you stay for 2 minutes, or you stay for 3 minutes, I'm not telling you you have to stay for half an hour. Sit down. When you sit down in his office, he has the perception, the impression that you care. So sit down. He'll say, wow, he cares. We're so busy, we're all so busy. And look at that, he sat down in my office to ask, how am I doing? And when you do and ask about his kids, ask about his wife, don't ask about the deals he's working on. Make it about him. We're people. So this is what leaders have to do. And this is what we forget in the world we're living in, where technology, I can see the attention span of people being so limited. I mean, yesterday I posted a podcast we did with one of the great leaders in Quebec, an hour. Who's going to listen to the podcast for an hour? They have a problem listening to a podcast for 5 minutes. Today, the focus, the concentration span, because of technology, is so limited, right? So we spiced it up, put a nice picture of one of the Sir John Major that we met, the former UK president, prime minister that we had met years ago. So maybe entice people to click on it. But and why? Because leadership is sharing. It's learning from each other. So it's so important to do podcasts such as these that we are doing, because I can learn from you, you can learn from me, and we can share it with others and share our experiences. And we have to use technology to our advantage. But the old fundamentals, like I said, sitting down, speaking to your employer, speaking to your employee, no stigma, no walls. Let's talk about you, right? That's so important.
I think you're right on. And since we're on quotes, and I just saw 42 again, by the way, the movie, like for the 10th time. But Maya Angelou, who you probably know, she had a lot of quotes, and one of my favorites was that something to the effect that most people will forget what you said, most people forget what you've done, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
Yes, I love that one. Yes, very nice.
So it's right on.
And this is how you make, and this is how you have to do it authentically. Yeah. Leaders who care, you have to do it authentically. But once you do that, less turnover. Engagement is so key in our corporations today. Engagement. How do you get the employee engagement? At times we have the highest engagement ratings, and how did you do it? How did you get it? Well, you can't summarize that in one word. And it's sitting down every single day with your employee and talking to him, maybe 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And at the end of the week, you've invested an hour or 2 hours with your employee just talking about himself. I have a problem at home, and this is a situation, or I have a problem with my parents and they're getting older. And I think that's so key in leaders. And this is what we have to bring out. And the values always play it's a priority. The prior roles are the values. They have to be there, always there on your side, right and left. Where are the values? Live them and share them and bring them forward each and every day.
Yeah, I think it's the best return on investment people could have for their life, their legacy, and for their business and it really impacts community all around. So, hey, you always make me feel better, and you make me smarter. And
I don't know about the smarter side, Mark. You make me smarter. You make me feel better. You make me laugh at this point.
We'll make it deal.
Which is good to laugh. We shall not forget to laugh. Although we are in a pandemic and there's not much laughing that could be done, it's a serious matter.
Well, laughter is well.
And I feel for everybody, but laughter is good. We have to keep living and keep moving forward and keep laughing.
Well, this is no joking matter, but I always have a good time with you, and I really appreciate you joining you are a true leader who cares, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mark. Always my pleasure. Thank you for having me.